miss your dad?
Yeah, I can fix it.
Yes, I can sometimes.
Yeah, you can. Is your dad good at fixing things? Hello and welcome to Dad Stories. Fathers are important, and this show exists to demonstrate the value of fatherhood by highlighting positive experiences with dads. No father is perfect, and not everyone has had the blessing of a good father figure in their lives. But all of us can benefit from some good stories about good dads. Today we hear from Aaron Sewell, a husband, father, and teacher from the great state of Iowa. I got to talk to Aaron as he took his daughter Reagan out to the park. She was a trooper and let us hear many wonderful things about her grandpa before finally deciding it was time to go. So Aaron, tell us about your dad.
My dad, Gerald Sewell, he was born and raised in Maryland. He had a large family. I can't recall how many siblings, but I know it was a lot of siblings. Coming from a family of 10 myself, I think he was around that number. I just lost track. But spent a lot of his professional career, Army Reserves, starting in ROTC in college. Played lover of baseball. Played baseball in college. A lot of time traveling around the state and sometimes to Germany to military bases just to take on posts and commands there and help out however we can. So ended up settling in Kansas City, Missouri, where I spent most of my life growing up. And most of my siblings, my mom has family in that area. So that's the nutshell.
What did you and your dad do? How did you spend time together?
He would play baseball with us, me and my siblings. He would take us to parks, trails, video games. We'd play Madden against each other. He'd blame the game when he loses. We were always scared to beat him in Madden. So I don't know. He was always he would work hard. Sometimes he'd work 2 jobs growing up to take care of us. He would do Army on post stuff on weekends sometimes, and he'd work for a security company. Depends on the stage of life we're in. And he'd just come home exhausted, but he'd take a 30-minute nap, and then he'd wake up and he'd play with us. He'd play with us in the backyard. He'd take us to the playground where we could ride our bikes and just let us, try to give us the best opportunities we had to grow up and have fun. Just those chances that where we try to be the best versions of ourselves as we grow up. I kind of reflect and see him trying to do that and be the best father version of himself.
Let me take a second to tell you about a company I feel strongly about. We all have a responsibility to our family and our community to be ready to help should an emergency arise. We all want to be an asset, not a liability in a crisis situation. That's where Woodline Defense comes in. Woodline Defense is a firearms instruction company based out of Omaha, Nebraska, started by a former cop who is now a pastor and teacher. They specialize in training and equipping individuals for higher levels of competence with firearms, and have programs specifically designed to help churches set up and improve security teams. They have rifle and pistol instruction from basic to advanced, along with a concealed carry class. They help folks feel comfortable, but they also push them to get better. You can find out more at woodlinedefense.com or reach out to them on Facebook. Woodline Defense. Training for those who have a heart to protect others.
So he did Army Reserves for, I can't remember, I want to say 20 plus years. He's going to be mad if he ever hears this. And I can't remember the details. He's a very understanding, fun-loving person. Our kind of love language growing up has always been kind of joking with one another, almost roasting each other. And with my siblings and I realized we got that from our dad, kind of, where we do it lovingly, but it's almost a constant where people from outside my family, like my wife's like, "Why are you being so mean to me?" I'm sorry. This is just how we love each other. We always joke. We always just push buttons just to get a smile and a laugh. So It seems like we're being mean, but we're really not trying to. We're just trying to have fun and enjoy. Uh, and it's like sometimes we realize that we might have gone too far, and I'll see even my dad, and we'll see each other dial it back and calm down and try to reset. But it's just a really big love language thing I've realized. If I'm joking with you a lot, it means I really like you. You're an important person in my life, so it's not a bad thing.
Any other traits you picked up from your dad other than the love language of roasting each other?
Caring for people. I just have this really big heart for to do anything I can. If I see someone in trouble or if I see someone having issues, and understanding that they're going through complex things, and just sort of God, trying to share God's love with them. And my dad would try to do that with his kids, with us, and with people we would see. Him try to jump people's cars and things like that, or shovel driveways. Just go out of his way to try and show them some love, and he would do that with us. And I feel like when I reflect on my own life, I see myself mimicking, trying to do similar things I saw my dad doing growing up, and just trying to love others any way I can.
Were you closer to your dad when you were younger, or was it something that grew over time? Or when did you and your dad most connect?
That's a good question. I'd say it's been pretty steady. Um, I couldn't pinpoint for myself. It's been a pretty steady, strong relationship. Now, I will say I didn't recognize how much good he was doing for me until I, got older and took on chores and bills and adult responsibilities, and then became a parent myself. The more I reflect on how I'm trying to do the best I can, the more I look back and go, oh, that's what my dad was doing. Or, oh man, he would try to go to all these football games in high school and stuff like that just to be supportive, and I would be so down on myself after games, and he'd be so upbeat and try to encourage me. And I'm like, man, he was just trying to do his best to make sure he understood that I did do some great things, and I was being hard on myself, and I am loved and cared for. So I would say it's something I definitely didn't recognize to its full potential till adulthood, the past 10-ish years. Um, Instead of growing up, that was more of me just going, I just want to do my own thing, or I just want to make big plays in football. I just want to have fun and enjoy life without really recognizing how much goes into me each day surviving and being a functional, healthy child, teenager, and things like that. And just all the when you think your parents are being hard on you, yeah, I reflect now and I go, okay, now I get why I've made so many mistakes post college trying to do my own thing. Now I get why my parents had these rules or had these ideas or these concerns, why they cared so much, and to discipline or to have these tough conversations that I didn't want to hear about. And I get it all now. So I'd say it's been a constant that we've been close, but it's been 2020 vision now, reflecting back.
What do you wish you picked up from your dad? Like, in what ways are you different than him, and you wish you were more like your dad?
He's extremely close to God, and I'm sure he would tell me that it's not something that's happened overnight or that he grew up with. He's told me some about his life, that there's plenty of mistakes he'd made that he wish he could take back. And I'm generally pretty critical of myself, and I try to push myself to be better and better each day. But I would remember waking up, and him and my mom, they might be up at 5, 6 in the morning just praying and reading the Bible and things like that. And every night they would try to, if they could remember, pray over all of us kids, just go around to our beds and just put their hands on us and just say a quick prayer. So I that's something I have been able to successfully try to incorporate into Reagan's life. She's like, well, I'll put her to bed, she'll fall asleep, I'll say some quick prayers of blessings and thanks over her and move on. But there's just so much my parents would do just to really give them all themselves to, just the constant prayer and meditation. And it's something I try to continue to get better at, but it's an area of growth in my spiritual life, because I understand that the closer they were, it affected how they treated us and how much they loved us, or how they showed their love for us, I should say. when they started leaning on God and trusting more. Because I will say there was a time in our lives where they leaned more disciplinarian, and then one day it just there was a huge switch where me and my siblings realized, like, man, their whole attitude's different. They're a lot more, I don't know, just showing the love a lot differently. Like they're still disciplined, uh, but it just wasn't as frequent, I guess. And at the same time, my sibling and I kind of stopped fighting a lot more and having these conflicts with each other. Because so it's something my parents saw and meditated on and found that helped them to change their approach to showing their love, and it affected our lives as well. On where we were less uh, frequently at each other's throats about different things. Still plenty of sibling conflict, but not as physical or aggressive and things like that. So there's just a lot from the spiritual side of my dad and his walk with God that he just continually tries to get closer, that I'm trying to mimic myself.
What do you think your dad would define success as? What does being successful look like to your dad?
It's a good question, because I probably have too high a bar for success myself, where I'm just trying to push myself to accomplish this, accomplish that, make sure my daughter Reagan can do this, can do that. But I feel like he would have it more plain face. You're taking care of those people around you. Those people around you can feel and sense your love, and you're just following God. I think that would be the ultimate thing in his term of success, is he's doing what he knows or is pretty sure God would want him to do, and just following his plan.
Was there a time that you remember realizing your dad was a good man?
Again, it probably would be more of a post college thing, where I sit down and I think back, especially to reflect on my football career. I played some football right before high school. Played some football in high school, and I did it because I learned I was good at it, and I love to be recognized for being good at something by people. And my dad and my mom, they would drive me to early practices, or to late day meetings or weekend meetings and things like that. And I would never think about even thanking them. I don't know if I ever thanked them during that time growing up for driving me to those things. I was always, oh, it's hot today. Oh, I got to do this because conditioning today, it's going to be terrible. Oh, we got to play this team. It's always me. And, which, focus on team sports is great, but I never thought about the people who helped me succeed in those sports. So not until like post college, where my dad, they didn't make too many college games because it was about 3 hours further than high school, and they just had a lot of people to take care of at home. But they would make those drives to see me and to try and watch me play, and they'd always try to show that they were interested and cared, and just go out of their way, even just to drive me back and forth from Kansas City to Indianola, Iowa for college during breaks or after breaks or weekend trips. I reflect on all of that, and I realize, like, man, like they would drive almost 3 hours to drop me off at college and turn around in 20 minutes and drive 3 hours home. And my siblings would come as well, because they just, I don't know. I'll have to ask them, why would they come? Well, maybe it was to get the McDonald's in Bethany, Missouri. That might have been why, which I don't blame them. But, my dad and mom, and they would do this regularly. And it's really, when I reflect on it, I was like, wow, they really loved and cared for me to do that, to easily do that. And I would try to get rides with friends back to Kansas City if I knew they were going into a similar area, but they would do it in a drop of a hat, drop of a hat. If I needed them, they were there. If I was too scared to speak up for myself, they would give me a voice in that moment and teach me how to be my own voice. So it's like I said, there's plenty I'm trying to grow and be better at as a father now, and just as a community adult member now. But there's just so much I look back and I go, wow, no, this is stuff my parents had done before me. And this is why I try to do it like I'm trying to do it now, because of the things my father instilled into me growing up. Tried to, he understood he wasn't perfect. And he understands we won't be perfect, but he just wants us to try our hardest and do our best.
What would life have been like, in your opinion, without your dad? If you didn't have your dad in your life, how do you think things would have looked?
Like if there wasn't a dad at all in my
Yeah,
life,
yeah. If
or
your dad specifically,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
It's like, I was like,
yeah.
I don't know if there was, even if it was another dad, it'd be different. It'd be very different. Um, I don't, I don't think I'd be where I am at all in regards to success. And I guess I, I, I consider myself being successful right now, even though I've had many different jobs the last uh, 10, 13 years, moved to many different homes within this area. But I feel like every time I do something different, I get better and better. I keep trying. I reflect on things that I've done and I try to figure out, all right, how can I do it better next time? How can I be better next time? I'm going to make more mistakes next time, but I need to just continue to push forward and keep trying and working hard. And that's all skills I got from my dad. Uh, so yeah, if he wasn't there, if he was just gone or just wasn't an influence in my life, I feel like I'd lean more on my more emotional, softer side, which isn't a bad thing. But there are times when life just pushes so hard on you, you can't wait for someone to pick you up. You have to push forward, and that's skills I got from my parents, and that's things my dad showed me just through his actions and through dragging himself to work on days he really didn't want to go to work, or when there was times he didn't have work and he knew he had a family to take care of, and he would push himself to get out there and find work to take care of us. And we all reflect back and we see that and realize that it's a huge impact on our lives. He did everything he could for us to try and be comfortable and for us to try and have the necessities that we wouldn't have to worry and we wouldn't have to wake up in fear and or be hungry or be cold. If a ice storm came and knocked out the power in Kansas City, he'd pick us up and drive us to our grandma's house, drive our whole family to our grandma's house, just so we could have warmth and a warm place to be. So it's something I pull in my own life and go, what will I not do to take care of Reagan, to take care of my wife? What will I not do to go those extra miles and make sure that they have what they need, just like I saw in my own life growing up.
Do you have any stories that you would like to tell about your dad? Or what is the story you commonly would tell people? Like when if you were trying to describe your dad, either in a good time or in a time when you made him really mad, or
I know, I guess one side of them is like where we more playful side, with the Nintendos and PlayStations and GameCubes. We'd have these Madden tournaments at the beginning of each year, NCAA football before they went out of business, and I guess they're coming back in business someday. The NCAA football was our first. We'd pick teams, and we'd set up a tournament between my siblings and I and our dad, and we'd play each other. And he was a sports aficionado, obviously more experienced than us, older than us, but we were kids and we were young gamers, I guess, at the time, before gamers was a common term. And we just play each other. And I'd have younger siblings that would just throw Hail Marys play after play. And if you ever played Madden or NCAA, those plays are almost impossible to stop, and especially in the early stages of those games, or I said early would be like Super NES and Nintendo 64. And it would just frustrate the heck out of him. And you could just see it on his face, just mad that these Hail Mary plays are working time after time. Or I would pick teams and I would just do power right and power left and just straight run the football almost every play. um, get chunks after chunks, and then I would get beat by a younger sibling who's Hail Marying it. And it was just crazy. But you could read it on my dad's, but he wouldn't like berate us or anything, but we could see the joy almost disappear out of him. Like, seriously? It's like, this is not realistic at all. Or he'd be doing a run play himself and he'd have the controller in his hands and he would like try to make the controller follow the player on the screen, which was always fun to watch for us siblings. And we joke about it behind his back. Where it was before the Oculus and all those 3D the PlayStation VR virtual reality things came out, so he was a little ahead of the time. But he would just take the controller and try to follow the player where they're going on the game, and we're like, "What are you doing? It's just joysticks." So no, that's really it's a fun aspect of him, of how into it he'd get and how fun he'd be around us. And even when he was mad, he wouldn't destroy us verbally or anything. He'd just shut down, process it, and then he'll shake our hand after the game and take some time and come back later and talk about how crazy that was that worked. So it was a fun aspect. There was a time where out of work, or he was looking for another job to go with his weekend duty, when you just didn't have a full-time job at the time, and we didn't know it. He didn't tell us. And we were having our family night one night, and I had an older sibling who was building a supercomputer with a job he had, and he was just bragging about how expensive this is and expensive things that is. And my dad just kind of made like a big sigh, frustrated sigh, and we're all like, "What's going on?" And then later on, we realized he didn't have full-time work at the time. So it was like my older sibling almost bragging about having to buy these expensive things while he's trying to make sure we have food on the table. We're like, "Oh, wow." It's like, but that's how hard he worked to make sure we didn't know what was going on. So we wouldn't be worried, and we wouldn't be bugging him, or we wouldn't be frustrating each other about stuff going on in this bigger world. Because we were just kids and teenagers growing up, and he worked as hard as he could to make sure that more grown-up part of life that we weren't ready for didn't seep down from him and affect us. Because with kids, if I work now in my professional jobs, I've seen parents get frustrated and lash out at their kids verbally, and things that would terrify me growing up. If my parents said that to me, or dad said that to me out in public, especially, and my heart breaks for those kids. And then I talk to those kids, and they're like, "Yeah, my dad he got his car towed, and he can't afford to pay for it, and this is coming up." Like, oh wow, it's like there's all this life stuff that's affecting these guys. So it helps me understand where the parents are coming from, and the kids try to understand it too. But it just whole different mindsets, where my dad worked so hard to make sure we didn't see that life stuff affecting it. But and he did a great job. Most of the time we didn't understand the big financial things that affected, or negative things going on.
What, according to your dad, would it mean if he was supposed to define what it is to be a man?
The first one probably would be loves God, trusts God, because like I mentioned at some point, if we're doing our best to follow Him, we can mess up, but we can still be on a good track. Still be in a good space, still be close to the right path. And it's something like I said, I'm not great at. I can personally consider, but it's something I try to get better and better at. That's the first thing. Second one's just being responsible. Taking care of those people around you, taking care of those duties. Just trying to be responsible, and what's the D word? Not diligent.
Dutiful, maybe?
Not dutiful. I'll come back to it somewhere.
Right? That word available.
Yeah. It's gonna pop in my head later, and I'll be like, it's this. So we can move on.
All right.
It's gonna come into my head randomly. Distracting.
Let's see here.
Diligent.
Yeah, I hate when that happens, man. Especially as somebody who, you talk for a lot of your job.
Yeah, it's like a word you might even use a lot, and then one day it's just not in your head.
Mm-hmm. When was the time you got in trouble?
Time I got in trouble?
And how did your dad handle that situation? Unless you were just never in trouble.
Well, I was, but I had an older sibling call me Goody Two Shoes, because I was always trying to be peacekeeper and trying to be, "Hey guys, we shouldn't fight." And then I'd also be the guy who would like smack my brother in the head and run off before he could catch me.
Is that what your voice sounded like back then too?
Hey guys. Probably do. If I asked my siblings, they probably would say so. "Hey guys, we shouldn't be doing that stuff. Hey, that's not right." But No, I think there was a time where my my dad had a box of cornflakes saved. It was a little personal box of cornflakes, not like a regular full size box, a little bowl size box.
Mhm.
It was name brand cornflakes, and he'd let us know that he was saving it for later for himself, and we already had our share of something. And he put it away, and some reason I got my hands on those cornflakes, and I'm pretty sure it's spotty. So it might be. I'm assuming I got in huge trouble because it's like parts of it's blacked out from my memory. Um, so I know I was involved with the cornflakes disappearing, and my dad came in to look for it later, and he was not happy. So he did a interrogation, I guess, of who took the cornflakes and where's the cornflakes. And I told you guys I was saving those cornflakes. And like I said, my memory's a little spotty, so I'm pretty sure I got caught. Excuse me. Yeah.
Memory's a little spotty, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I got caught.
Yeah, blacked some stuff out.
Oh, man. The corporal punishment worked.
I'm pretty sure that's what ended up happening.
Unlike you, unfortunately, I only have one brother. Having 10 siblings, that's got to be cool, dude. Like,
Yeah. Reflecting back, it was cool. It's 9 boys, 1 girl.
oh my
So-
goodness, how did your parents keep their sanity?
I don't know. As I said, I look back at all the times they got frustrated with us, and I go, they were right. They were justified. We drove them up a wall. We'd get in huge fights with each other that would destroy the house, and they were right to be mad. But someone asked once, what if your sister was born before you? Would you have been born? And I went, oh no. I don't know. Because she's 20 now, but yeah, they really trusted God to get that girl.
If you have a story to share that would inspire others or help new dads find some direction, drop me an email at hroberthansen@gmail.com. That's Hansen with an E. We're looking for inspiring and helpful stories, as well as shorter words of wisdom that can be featured at times like this. If you'd like to be a part of the Dad Stories show, send me an email, or just continue to listen and look for opportunities to participate in the community as we grow. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
He had a physical presence, being a military man. So, he was always and he's still taller than me by like an inch, maybe inch and a half. But yeah, he was always just a built person, like not like super muscly like The Rock or anything, but he's in good shape. He would run often, growing up, just go out for runs and early morning runs and just stay in shape. He just had a presence, whenever he came in from work, we knew that he was tired. We knew we weren't supposed to bother him until he had his rest, until he took a nap. We weren't supposed to bombard, 6, 7, 8, 9 boys. Weren't supposed to bombard him with questions and requests as soon as he opened the door. And there were days he'd be in awesome moods, not taxing work day. He'd be happy, smiling, excited. And as anyone who works hard knows, there are days it's really hard to come home and be that happy, smiling person, and to come home to 9, 10 children. It depends on the stage of life. To take on a million kajillion questions when maybe you got bills coming up or something, or someone acted out at work. So we just knew, we just learned, especially us older kids learned, when he was not in a mood to take on questions or requests. We'd be like, oh, we should ask Dad to play GameCube. Oh, he came home, like, no, we can't ask him yet. We got to wait. And the younger sibling would be like, I'm going to go ask him. We're like, no, don't, because something bad will happen. Like, we'll never get to play the GameCube or something. We'd have to stop them and just physically grab that younger sibling to keep them from talking to our dad before he was rested. So, and then there was plenty of times where we just knew he had a huge spiritual presence. Like, we could tell that he's been studying and meditating, and which was pretty often. And we could tell if we were gonna talk about a movie or something, I don't know. And we kind of had an idea of how he was going to respond, and we're like, okay, well, Dad's been reading his Bible again. But yeah, there's just so many different aspects to him. He never tried to assert authority through fear. It was never his intention. There were times we became fearful, but it was never how he set out to go and instill fear in us to get us to do something. That was never his intention at all. And if it ever happened, he tried to make sure that we knew that he loves and cared for us. And this is why he approached us the way he did, so that we could hopefully learn from it. And like I said, a lot of lessons that took me post-college to sink in and connect, find the final puzzle piece to go, oh, that's why my dad did this. Like, oh, that's why he told me that. Or that's why that's why we were never supposed to bother him after work. Because sometimes you come home and you just don't want to talk to anyone. And sometimes my wife comes home and she just had a rough day, and I'm like, "Yep, leave her alone. We gotta leave her alone." Or I come home and she knows I've had a rough day. She's like, "Yep, we gotta leave him alone. Leave him alone till they're ready." And I saw that in my dad, and so it was he never tried to use fear as a way to motivate or control us at all. It's always love as what he pushed, and sometimes that love is more. It wasn't a way kids would want it to be, because kids want anything and everything all at once. Because we don't often growing up recognize responsibility of things that you get through experience and time. So yeah, he was always a large presence around him. Just it took a while to define that it was a presence of love, and sometimes it was shown in a strong way.
You mentioned spiritual authority. He walks in the house. He has a physical presence, but he also like the spiritual.
Yeah,
and I think that's a good thing for dads to have.
Right.
When I look at like the kids that I work with, and probably a lot of the kids that you work with too, and you can just tell that they're not used to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost and it's almost like you're kind of leaning towards a domino effect, where it's possible that these kids' dad didn't have a father figure, or they had a poor father figure at some time in this family line. There wasn't a strong, loving father figure.
How many generations do you think it takes to fix that?
I know it takes very little to ruin it. It's like I had a good dad. I could have turned out to be someone who was selfish, and
you could wake up tomorrow morning and go, you know what?
Yeah, and just forget it, and just be a terror for Reagan's life, and yay, Reagan, be a terror for Reagan's life, and it would just ruin her perception of a good father, and she'd be like, "What is a good dad?" And, she'd have to hopefully find the path, but it's just a lot better. But that's a good point. Like, how long does it take to fix having strong fathers along the lines? Like, I know my dad had we called him Pop, or my grandpa, my dad's dad. He was a strong figure in his life, but I couldn't tell you, what kind. I guess I couldn't define what kind of father he was to him, but I know my dad learned a lot from him that helped. And sometimes we take things we don't like about our growing up or about our fathers, and we try to be different from that. At the same time, I keep seeing these social media videos about how the version of yourself now is the version someone you would have been comfortable with as a child, and I'm like, I kind of get that. Where you kind of want to grow up to be a better version of yourself, or you want to be that adult that you always wish you had in your life. So I see a lot of my dad in me. It's plenty of my mom in me, and then I see things that good and bad, that I've added myself, that I've melded together myself I've seen from other father figures, my own father figure, other. Just things I've created to try and create a version that I would have loved to have to be that dad I really want to be. So as I said, it's good and bad. Just always constantly trying to adjust. So, just kind of, I just going back to that thought, just kind of blessed to have a strong father figure that I realized loves me. And even if he was being hard on me, it was because he loves me. And he never went as far as to say I was a complete failure. I was just swore at me, because I've seen dads do that to the kids, where they would just straight up swear in their faces and scream in their faces. And my dad never did that. Be extremely frustrated and sometimes disappointed. And, it was all coming from a place of love, though, when I look back and go, oh, yeah, I was being a baby, or I was being a little excessive or dramatic, or trying to do something that I thought I understood as a teenager and knew better than my own dad. Something I've never experienced, and now I get where they were coming from, and so it's possible for it to be. I guess it's easy to break within a generation. It's possible to be fixed within a generation, but it's always easier to break something than it is to fix something. Is I guess what is the ultimate answer.
Yeah.
I guess just an overall thought that I've leaned on this interview. Is just how much I've realized my parents played a role in my life, just who I am now. Growing up, I wanted to be the person that was liked. I wanted to, I just had a lot of sadness or just mopey and just wanted to do things right the first time. I hated being wrong. If you ever do a series on moms, I got some stories, but
We will, by the way. That's the hope,
Well,
is that we can
let me know.
do this and then get to moms after that.
It's just, my mom spent a lot of time homeschooling us, and my dad would teach us at night, and he was just working and working and working. So it's the only reason I have tons of stories about mom. But no, my dad is just, I don't know, he's just such a patient, caring person. My dad was always a patient, caring person. Oh, are you okay? What's wrong? Why are you sad? Speaking of patience, I think someone's run out.
Thanks for listening. And again, if you'd like to get in touch with our team, you can email me at hroberthansen@gmail.com. We hope to inspire new dads, tell stories about good dads, and highlight positive fatherhood along the way. If you'd like to be informed about future content, subscribe to the show, and we sure would appreciate it if you could leave a positive review.